My name is Mark Boldin, and I'm an associate professor in the Department of Molecular and Cellular Biology at the City of Hope in Duarte, California. So the way I started doing immunology, I was actually trained as a molecular biologist. So I started working on the molecular aspects of cell death, and that's what drew me to immunology. Because apoptosis or cell death, programmed cell death, plays a huge role in immune cell function. And this was my sort of like starting point in immunology. But by training, I'm a molecular immunologist. And right now, my lab studies the role of regulatory RNAs in immune cells. Some of my favorite things to do in the lab are to do experiments, bench experiments. I really enjoy that part of the lab and teaching as well. So I love interacting with students and postdocs, and that's a huge part of what I do in the lab. The most interesting thing that happened in my lab was a few discoveries that we've made along the way. So we kept working on the stuff that I initiated as a postdoc in the Baltimore lab at Caltech, and we developed these things into news stories, and that was probably the thing that is the most interesting about being a PI. The current environment for the non-US scientists right now is, pretty tough. I think, there are differences between, say, European and American science in terms of training, and especially in terms of grant writing, obtaining funding for the lab. But I would say that overall, still the pool of money that you have in the United States is much bigger than say, science in Europe, scientists in Europe have. And so the one advantage of being in the United States is that you have access to all this limited but still huge amount of funding that comes from NIH and other sources. The differences in lab environment between, let's say, Russia and the United States, because I was trained as a MD in Russia, huge, and the main difference is access to funding. So right now, Russian science still goes through a pretty bleak period of time where there is not enough funding for good science. And in comparison to what happens to in the United States, this is sort of like night and day kind of situation. So like a lot of good scientists in Russia are drawn to United States to continue their education and also training and establish labs here. It's really difficult to find that balance between the work-life balance when you're a scientist, because you keep thinking about science problems even when you're sort of like supposed to be relaxing. But this is also part of, the fun part of doing science is that, the government actually sort of like funds your hobbies, because for a lot of people like myself, this is really not a job. It's more of it's a passion. So to have this opportunity to actually do what you like and being paid for that is really unique, and I really cherish and appreciate that we can do that as scientists.